About a week ago, I finally broke down and bought myself some transportation. This is a 2023 Skygo motorcycle. Now, unless you've been hanging around the Philippines, you've probably never heard of this brand. And it's not one of the big four. So let's take a quick walk around. Got the square headlight, rectangular actually. Front fender. This is partly to show what I've got, and partly so that I will have a record of what I had after I've gone out and flogged it to pieces. Got drive chain adjustments, tire inflation pressures, sizes. You can see the chain hasn't even had a chance to get rusty yet. This is basically a slightly updated knockoff of a Honda CG125 late 60s vintage. If you look at the steering head, you can see the weld here, and continuing down below is incredibly even. You have welded tabs, there we are, closer to the front, that are the same. This one here is also the same. These are done by machine. Here you have a weld that was obviously done by hand. There is a reason for this. The Skygo bikes are made by Lifan in China, and while this model is not a perfect match for anything in their current lineup, it's a base model that they then modify depending on which customer has ordered them, and that includes slapping whatever brand name they want on there. And in the case of this particular bike, it was made for the Philippines, where sidecar service is the norm for bikes in this size range, the backbone type. And this cross hole in the frame underneath the gas tank is for mounting a sidecar. They have similar models that are made without that, and that extra gusset is not on there. And those frames, like this one, are made on automated machinery, and the welds are good. So it really doesn't bother me that the hand weld here is less perfect than it could be, because that whole bracket is just additional reinforcement the bike really doesn't need. You have the standard hydraulic damped front fork components. Here is the engine, 150cc. The quality of the components on this bike are frankly above average for something I would expect in this price range. The fit and finish that is done by hand is a little lacking. You can see the front fender here appears to have been put on slightly cockeyed, and the rear as well, and both of those were easily corrected. The clutch adjusting screws, the lower ones for the cable, were loose, and I had to snug those down. The switch and mirror assemblies were not adjusted and aligned the way I prefer. That meant I had to loosen up a screw here, rotate slightly. Same thing with the mirrors. None of this is a big deal. I had a brand new Harley Sportster I bought back in December of '76 that required as much, if not more, to get it dialed in. At this point, I've put 17 kilometers on the machine. That was on the day I brought it home from the dealership, because they do not have a temp tag that you can run while the paperwork for the registration winds its way through the process. Since then, it's been sitting here in the yard, and I've been hearing horror stories about how long it takes, and more encouraging news about how you can, shall we say, encourage the Land Transportation Office to do what they're supposed to be doing anyway. This shouldn't be necessary, but I'm not going to sit here and whine when there is something I can do to speed the process up. Where I come from, the saying is the squeaking wheel gets the grease, and that's pretty much the way it's going to go. In the meantime, while I'm waiting for the paperwork to arrive, I'm going to take care of the minor issues and get it in the best shape possible that I can without running it out on the road. Down here on the gear shift, I spent most of my riding career in the United States, and in 1974 the U.S. standardized control locations and shift patterns. And the pattern they standardized is first gear down, and then the rest, second, third, fourth, whatever, upwards, with neutral halfway between first and second. I've been using that pattern for 50 years. My foot has a mind of its own. On this bike, and as far as I'm aware the others here in the Philippines, the shift pattern is first down, followed by second down, third, fourth, fifth, and then to reduce, you hit the heel part and bring it back fourth, third, second, and into first. Unlike the US shift pattern, there is no stop at either end of the range. On my old Honda 750, if I were shifting down to first and I shifted down one more time, it would remain in first. I could sit there flipping it with my toe all afternoon, it wouldn't go any lower. Same thing when it hit the top of its range. I could keep lifting, but top gear was top gear. This one, the drum does a full rotation. If you continue shifting up after you hit fifth, you find yourself back in neutral. If you go one beyond that, you're in first gear again. This could be kind of upsetting if you're moving, say, 40-50 kilometers per hour. I am having to re-educate my left foot. Most people who come here on a tourist visa cannot purchase a vehicle, they have to rent one. But that is something you might want to keep in mind, unless you want to go splat halfway through your vacation. I would suggest if you're going to rent a vehicle, you get one of these scooters or small motorcycles that has an automatic transmission, so you don't have to try to retrain your foot. The other thing is warranty. There is a 1-year warranty on this bike. It is limited to 6 months for some items, 3 months for others, and normal wear and tear items aren't covered at all. This could be a problem. If it takes, say, 3 months to get the registration, you've lost about 1/3 of your warranty coverage. That's not good. The good news is the whole package runs less than $800 US. I could probably completely overhaul it for under $250. So the lack of a real warranty doesn't upset me any. If you look at the back, you'll see an extra shock mounting point behind the primary. This is part of the options for sidecar service. The extra shock allows them to pile more people on the back. In sidecar service, it's not unusual to see one of these little puppies lugging 5 to 7 Filipinos around at any one time. Obviously, the acceleration just isn't happening, and it does not achieve anything close to a high top speed. Speaking of which, we have drum brakes, front and rear. There are people who more or less assume that any motorcycle driving on the road requires a disc brake up front, preferably 2, preferably a 3rd disc on the rear wheel. If you're out there on some road burning rice grinder, I can see that happening. This thing weighs in the neighborhood of 200 pounds. If you look at the speedo, you will see that it's calibrated in kilometers per hour. The green zone is 40 to 60. So you're talking roughly 30 to 45 miles an hour. It, I am told, can reach speeds up to 100 kph or just about 60. That is fine for the roads I'm traveling. It's not a freeway machine, and if you're moving at those speeds drum brakes are perfectly adequate. I mean, they are strong enough to lock the tires, and unless you're out there road racing, you're not going to have brake fade. And you practically have to ride the brakes on this thing to get them to glaze and fade. It is a single cylinder. This down here is the pin that the rocker arms pivot on. Further down there is a gear behind here for the camshaft. Now, like I said, this is a knockoff of a CG125. It had the camshaft down in the crankcase, rocker arms down here, a pair of push rods, and, well, rocker arms cam followers actually down here, a pair of push rods up to rocker arms, and 2 valves in the cylinder head. This seems like a convoluted way of doing things. It does have one advantage. The camshaft and the followers are low enough in the engine that even when it is running very low on oil, they still get splash lube to the point where they're not going to destroy themselves. This thing has a change volume of 1 liter of crankcase oil. It is designed to run low and not suffer catastrophic damage. Before the lower end suffers catastrophic damage, the upper end will start seizing and the rocker arms will do sticky things, and it's basically a rev limiter. This is good. I mean, if you're going to destroy parts, definitely destroy cheap ones that are easily replaced. Which brings me to the cost of parts. A new cylinder and piston for this thing runs about $60 in kit form. That's one of the more expensive parts on it. Brake shoes are $3 a pair. Clutch cables about $3. Speedometer cable is maybe $4 to $5. Even the battery is like a $6 item. So maintaining it is going to be pretty much a no-brainer. Because, like I say, these are used in sidecar service as taxis, they are more or less a fleet vehicle. The things that do wear are consumables produced in enough quantity that you really can't make them any cheaper.